Hello and welcome to World of Tanks with Rapsikis. Firstly, I'd like to apologize for featuring the 85M on my channel again. I realize it's my most featured tank already, but I'm not really focusing on the tank in this replay. I'm focusing on strategy. Now, when you play low tiers, you notice a lot of people wasting ammunition at the scenery. Shooting at fuel tanks to make explosions, or shooting at trees to make them fall over, or shooting at whatever it might be, even shooting at allies and maybe tracking them or doing some damage. Now, this is not what this replay is about. This replay is about shooting at targets you can't see. So strategically deciding to take a calculated chance of actually being able to either track or damage an enemy, and that this is significantly different to just shooting at the scenery. This is actually something that's beneficial both to the team and to yourself when done right. So bottom tier, tier 8 matchup, I notice already there's a tier 7 heavy bottom left that's basically hiding where the TDs usually go, and the rest of the heavies are either in the middle or still trudging up to the hill. So the heavies have spread out pretty much all over the map, and it's difficult for me to decide with this tank where I could have a maximum impact. It does have a bit of gun depression, I believe 7 degrees, so I could work the mid-ridge, but I don't really have the view range to do the work of a spotter, but we do need someone to do spotting. So I decided to go work the midline a little bit, see if I can maybe spot 1 or 2 enemies, and make a decision whether it's worth it to work the ridgeline continuously or to relocate to a different position. So there already you can notice there was probably some people that spotted me, and I didn't spot them in return because, as you'll see, the green circle is smaller than the white circle, so this tank is not ideal for spotting. I don't have optics, I only have binocs. So I mentioned to the team I'm not going to spot anymore, and I decide to work the midline instead. So from this position, depending on how many people you have on the hill, it's often the case that you can land some shots on the enemies that are on the hill, and you can do a significant amount of damage to them. So that shot went straight at the IS-6 but didn't do any damage, so presumably it hit someone else between me and him. And there you see I destroyed the track of a KV-3, which I didn't even spot. I didn't even know he was there. But because the IS-6 and the KV-3 were sharing more or less the same position, I was aiming at the IS-6 and my shell landed on the KV. This one, I know the Hellcat is more or less there. If he moved out from behind the corpse of the KV-3, then I would have hit him. But I believe that wasn't the case. If you look at the hit points he still got remaining. Now it's tricky from this position with a relatively inaccurate gun to try to actually snapshot or try to actually choose where to hit a target and to actually hit their weak points. But if you keep spamming enough shells in their direction, you should have a positive impact. Obviously you need to be aware of what's going on near you when you're doing this kind of sniping. So if that OI, for example, were to push over, I would be in big trouble. You'll also notice I switched over to HE because my AP wasn't pinning, and I don't want to spend a lot of credits on APCR simply because I don't know if the shots are even going to hit, never mind penetrate. And there you see I accidentally hit the ONI, aiming at the 54 mod 1, but he was moving, so I did have a relatively low chance of hitting him. Right, again the HE doing its job, tracking the 54 mod 1 in place, and that shell again flying right at the T-54 but not doing any damage. So at first I thought there was another friendly up there, enemy up there that I accidentally hit, but that wasn't the case. Right, and there again I hit a friendly. So when you're doing this kind of long range shooting, you need to be very careful and actually plan your allies' movements as well, because often is the case, as you saw here now, I was aiming at an enemy and a friendly came in between us. And Wargaming's policy is simple: if you hit someone, it's your fault. You can't have an argument about aiming at one thing and hitting another thing or whatever. Your shell is your responsibility, so if you pull the trigger, you must be prepared to pay their repair cost, and perhaps handle their unfriendly chat because of your hitting them, which happens often. But I digress. Right, so if you have a look at the bottom left, spotting damage just over 600 and damage just over 700. So it's not a bad total. I do have fire for effect, but it's not a great game by any extent of the imagination, especially in this tank with quite a good DPM and relatively good armor. So this is something I often do with the gun with a fast reload. The moment you are pointing in the right direction, fire off a shell, and in the time that it takes you to aim, you should be reloaded and be ready to shoot the second shell. Don't do this with a very high caliber gun with a very slow reload. In that case, take your time, wait for the reticle to reduce in size. But on a fast firing gun, you can afford to throw a couple of shells away and hope that on the 1 in 10 chance that you're actually going to hit the target in the middle of your reticle. Right, that one I auto-aimed and obviously hit the dirt instead of the tank I was aiming at. So have a look at the bottom left again. 748 done, 618 spotted. That's not counting the blind damage I did. So let's have a look at the post-game stats and compare the in-game numbers, 748, with what actually happened. Here you see quite a different story. Okay, so the experience including the ×2, and I believe I was running some personal reserves as well. The experience isn't an accurate portrayal, but under the team details, you'll see I was actually number 2 on experience with a total of 1,920 damage done. That's just over 1,200 damage more than was displayed in-game. So don't always look at that and think that's the only impact you're having. Right, and then on the personal details, the spotting damage was accurate, obviously, but the total damage of over 300 meters was 1,749, so it's a relatively good amount of damage at long distance. However, with the number of shells that I fired that missed altogether, there's absolutely no chance that I would have gotten something like a tank sniper reward. But if you look at the credits and the experience for the game, even though my damage total in-game didn't look like much, I actually had a significant impact on the game and made a significant contribution to my team. So don't always, especially if you're bottom tier or a lower tier, despair because you can't pen someone or whatever. Switch to HE or aim for the tracks and try to make a contribution in a different way. I hope this helps you out and teaches you some extra strategies that you maybe weren't aware of. If it does, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.